So I want to say thank you for being here. Today is officially April 22nd, 2017. So it is Earth Day. And I have the lovely, beautiful Siriza, who is very, very, to me, she looks like a goddess with your hair. You look like a goddess and your look. And it's so exciting because not only are we going to be talking about Earth Day because it is Earth Day, but she has a number of things she does. She's a sculptress, she's a performance artist, and we're going to be also discussing, if we can, that she's a professional doula. And you can't get more of the earth than talking about birth and bringing people into this world, really. Um, so before we get into Earth Day, why don't you just introduce yourself to our beautiful guests, other Earthlings out there?
Hello, Earthlings. I'm Siriza. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, Madison's lovely. We have grapes.
So can we talk about this? This is our. I felt like going very goddessy today. I was inspired by Siriza. I was inspired by Earth because when you think of Earth Day, you think of feminine energy. You think of Mother Earth. When we talk about the Earth, we never say like Grandpa Earth or Father Earth. We always say Mother Earth, and so that ties in all the feminine aspects of life and being alive. So I have a very Earth Day spread here. I have grapes because when I think of goddesses, I think that goddesses should eat grapes. I mean, right? Like they're not going to eat like steaks. They're going to eat grapes.
I eat a lot of steaks.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, but for the purpose of being well behaved feminine goddesses, I felt that grapes were more appropriate. And I have my little what would you call this? Like my little goddess statue that I think I purchased, I don't know, like maybe 15 years ago. And there's a surprise at the end of this episode. I had written little manifestations on a piece of paper and I'd hid it in here. That's what you were supposed to do to see if they manifest it. So I don't remember what I wrote. That's the fascinating. It's going to surprise me. It's like
unearth it.
Yes, I want to unearth it exactly. And then I also have an herb garden because I decided that I'm going to do my part. They recommend for Earth Day that you do something for the earth, and they recommend that you plant trees or you clean up rubbish or you recycle or you start a recycling plan at your job. So I decided, hopefully we won't kill it, but I decided that I'm going to plant some herbs. And that was my contribution. So this is my Earth Day, Mother Earth and Goddess spread.
Lovely.
So thank you. So I guess I'll say how I met you.
Okay.
That I met Siriza at Noisky Project's art gallery. You guys may have remembered because I did a show on it with Sean Noisky and Katya, and they did a show called Hex On, Hex Off, which was all about transformative art. It was all about magic. It was about shamanism. And I met Siriza there and we talked about her piece, and we talked about the piece on the show I think it was maybe the second week of March. I think that was March 1st till the 30th, yeah. Right? So I think I went to Sean's studio and we did a show there. But as soon as I met you, I was like, oh my God, she's just like, your piece was so, it had this what I remember about it was it had this feminine kind of transformative quality to it. Like I really, with any art, you don't always know exactly what you're looking at. You only know what you're feeling about it. I guess that would be a way to kind of describe art. So it gave me this feeling of Kali, this feeling of like deconstruction and reconstruction, but yet it was feminine because there was bits of it and material of it. But we're going to show you her art. We're really fortunate because you sent us photos and we could talk about it. But anyway, before we get into that, why don't you tell us, you were telling me that you You shot in the desert, or you worked in the desert. You lived in the desert for many years, right? Like, where were you, and what were you doing there?
Well, I'd lived in San Francisco 12 years, about.
And you lived
And
in Philly too,
I
right?
lived there. I lived in Mexico, little different places. But it was the end of. I needed to live in a different way. So yeah, I had.
Can I stop you?
Sure.
What do you mean, like a different way from what?
From being deep in society structures, essentially. I mean, there's a lot of ways to say it, but I just wanted to be live in a different way, that wasn't just different pace, different, and so essentially that's essentially the reason. And I went out there, and I had very good friend of mine out there, and we lived on land together, and I would go out there and explore and experience a lot of different other states of being. Um, and very interesting things happened.
Where in the desert were you? What part?
Just the Mojave.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, my friend had made a farm, so he had many animals and things like that. Yeah.
Did you actually like grow your own food? Like, were you completely self-sustainable, or?
No, it wasn't so much like that.
But it sounds like it was more isolated.
It was
though.
isolated, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Down a lot of dirt roads, in the middle of not much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, for maybe the first half of it, I wasn't intent on making anything, and then the second half of being out there, I eventually just started putting a camera on things. A camera was gifted to me, and I started just making images of different, visions, essentially, that were happening, and different, I was experiencing different states of being that were really, really literally transformative, and disintegration of a body and things like that. So, then really specific images would come to me that would correlate with those feelings. And so, I put a camera on them and constructed those images. So that's some of them that are here too.
Do you think that that those feelings that you had, or those different states of being, do you think that was specific to being far away from this, or being in the desert, or was it because you were producing art? Like, what do you think gave you those feelings?
I wasn't really producing anything at that time. It was definitely being, we're so human centric. I feel like that when I talk about this time, people are like, well, what was it like performing for nobody? And I'm like, what does that even mean? It was completely wonderful to spend, chunks of time just not really, with anyone, and communing with rocks, with animals, with air, with, and then everything else that is in between, and the ether. And, we have access to a lot of, it's almost like antennas and radios. We have access to, in quieter places, to much more.
I think that's true, because when we're in society, and when we're in a city, and when we're in, amongst a small area with a lot of other people, we're getting all sorts of interference.
Yeah.
And there is,
absolutely,
maybe we can't measure this, and maybe we don't know this. I don't know if it's been documented, but even like cell phones and television sets and radios and computers, they all interfere with.
Mm-hmm.
I did notice, like we went to Yosemite, and even that is probably crowded. compared to what you
yeah.
had. But we had this one thing in Yosemite where we went out. It was called Starry Nights, and we went out to the field, and there were these rangers that showed us the sky. You just lied on your back, and as the sky got darker, you could see more and more and more, and it became like, I don't know if you've ever seen these 3D pictures that they used to be really big, like when I was in college, and you would kind of like, if you relaxed your eye enough, you could go deep into this picture and it became 3D, whereas initially it looked like nothing.
I completely forgot
Oh,
about
it was
that.
just, I thought it was so fascinating. It was like such a great,
yeah.
it was like if you were tired, it was like a great eye exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you could only see like a small corner of it, but then it would lead into this other, this whole thing. And I just remember that's how it was for me at Starry Nights, because I would look at the sky, and initially around 8:30, 9 o'clock, it wasn't that dark.
Yeah.
But it got darker and darker, and your eye got more adjusted to it. And suddenly I was seeing moving satellites, and I was seeing all this extra stuff up there.
Yeah.
And the stars, like that I originally saw, they had thousands of stars behind those stars, and stars behind those stars.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, it's very overwhelming, and you feel very small, and it can almost make you feel dizzy.
Yeah. Yeah. I would call it the existential queen out there, because it's almost like any pride you would have, any ego at all, any like great idea, she would just knock you in your knees and be like, no, you're so small. You're so small. Just be here and be completely humble, and just don't, it's like, this is so much, and identity politics, I feel like, are so important and have their place, but we get really consumed here with, identity. And I feel like being in a place like that, it's almost like everything just starts pulling apart, and breathing, so you can exist in the in between more, and see the fabric of things, and like things like that, what's behind things, what's in between things. So,
and I think that was the feeling I got from your art, that it's sort of all placed in a way that's in between, and what's behind something else, and deconstructing and putting back together. Yeah. Can we show some of her art? Let's go. I feel like I wasn't going to do it till later, but I think it's a really good time to kind of bring that into focus, and then we can go into other things. So we actually have a treat. We can talk about some of this. So there you go.
Okay. Yeah, this is the piece that we met with, the mask. I mean, this is a whole costume, but essentially that's a mask called face casket for Oya. And you mentioned Kali. And Oya she's the Yoruban kind of equivalent to Kali. She's the warrior goddess. And so my family's Cuban, and I grew up, we all lived in a house together till I was 5, like a million people. And they had Santera altars everywhere and things like that. And now it's not, they don't, my family doesn't want to talk about it too much, but that was a really,
what is a
Santeria? Yeah, it's
is that the sort of like, is it like voodoo a little bit?
It's different. I mean, it's different. It's similar in the sense that it's it's African based. It's an African faith that is very much based in nature. So it's a lot of nature worship. Very distilled and very sophisticated in its complexity. I mean, it's so incredible how, I don't know, there's a lot to say about that. But this so anyway, this was in homage to Oya, and it's made with hair and also horsehair, because that's one of her symbols in copper. And she rules lightning, thunder, all storms, the gates of cemeteries. She guides through the worlds, and she brings change, the absolute change, to the ground, to the root, not lightly, not casually. She's mass destruction. And that is one of her costume pieces is she just wears a face shield, a face veil. So I just incorporated kind of all of her, just thinking about her symbology, and making a piece
That's
for
so
her
cool.
out of that. Yeah.
Should we go to the next one?
Sure. Let me know if there's one that you want different from what we have.
Okay.
All right.
So this is a still from a so in the desert there were I made a lot of images. A lot of it is digital, but then there were some that were made on 8mm and 16mm with Ilona Berger shot this, who was also at that show we were at.
Right.
And so we went out there, and with a lot of that imagery, I'm just decided to do it in chapters. And so this is from one. The chapter is called Erotic Slumbers of Pluto, and
it's a great name.
Yeah, it's about it's underworld. It's about pulling into the underworld and shadow work. And this character that we're looking at, and a few else that are in here, are all they're kind of from the underworld of ancestry that I think lives in the underworld of our body. Because I believe that we still carry all the stories of our ancestors in the fabric of, our flesh.
They call that the mitochondria, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of different.
And there's I think medically that's being proven.
And now it is, which just finally science always has to.
They always
people
have to
are like, oh, now I believe you.
It's like the intuitives and the shamans and the medicine women or medicine men. They always know first.
Yeah,
that they know which herbs to take.
I know, and that and also a lot of my ancestors were medicinal healers that were also mediums. In Cuba and also Mexico on both sides. So I have a lot of that in my blood, and so I chose to. I don't, I am a doula, and that's somewhat medicinal, but mostly, I go into art to do those things. But it makes sense.
Do you think that's more accepted there than it is here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it, because they're an older culture.
Yeah,
I think an older culture understands that kind of lineage.
Yeah.
So can you see us while that's on?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we should do a few more. Yeah, just pull one up. Oh.
Yeah, and then this is a still from the same. This is one of the ancestors.
Did you?
I played all the characters.
Did you have a vision of the ancestor? Or?
I did. I had a vision of the ancestors, and I also this character is they don't see out of one eye, and there's a lot of mythology between a blind seer and there's Ged, and there's the beings that live in two worlds, and so they're one eye to see in the underworld and watch over the dead, and then the other world to watch over the food, which is up here.
Why is food so important in the underworld?
Because you need energy. It's so much work.
Is it a lot of work in the underworld?
It's a lot of work to, yes, it is actually.
Well, that's why we have grapes.
Yes,
we have grapes to make sure that's why the goddesses eat grapes, and they can offer it up to the.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are two images from that.
How long were you living in the desert?
5 years, on and off though. I mean. Yeah, on and off.
That's a good period. That's a good chunk of time, actually.
It was from 2012, 2010 to
so you just kind of shifted.
Yeah. So then I was back and forth between there and here, like for 2 years after that, something like that. But yeah. So now I'm here all the time, but. Yeah, I was out there for a lot of that period, and the world got so different.
Yeah.
So different.
Well, the technology definitely changed, and I guess
So
you weren't doing
quickly.
Facebook when you were in the
No,
desert.
I had a
You would
flip
have been-
phone that was like in the corner under piles of dirt. I barely talked to anybody. I didn't answer calls, nothing.
You know, I did tell somebody this, that because I lived in Prague in my 20s, and when you live in I'm sure you had the same experience, because I didn't understand Czech. And every billboard I saw was in another language. And if you sat on the bus, people spoke, but you couldn't pick up or tune into anything. So the thoughts in your head become super loud.
Yeah.
It's a form of meditation.
Yeah.
Like, I can't get to that place when I meditate because I can't meditate. I can't sit long enough.
Yeah.
But when you're in a situation where you're really an outsider, or you're the only person,
Yeah.
then it's kind of a gift.
Yeah.
You know, people talk about, like, you know, I wonder what happens, like, when you talk about people that are forced into a situation where they have to be isolated. I mean, they probably emerge really knowing themselves.
You have to. It's very ride or die. I mean, it can be wonderful, or it can completely destroy you.
Were you
know?
completely alone?
No. I mean, like I said, I had.
You said you had a friend.
My
I didn't
very
know they
good
were
friend.
with you the whole time.
Yeah, they were on the same land as me, but we were very together and alone, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We had stretches of time, days, where we just didn't see each other, talk to each other, and then we would come together. But we were always, I mean, you know, that's not the same as being completely alone. But yeah. So, but yeah, nobody else. Nobody else.
I'm
We
just
had a kind of
curious.
understanding about things.
I'm really curious. Well, you're obviously, well, you said you're a Scorpio, right?
Yeah.
So, and I do know one thing about Scorpios, not to bring astrology into our Earth Day goddess,
We can.
doula, sculptor, performance artist talk, but Scorpios really do cherish their alone time. I mean, they're very, very
reclusive.
Every Scorpio I know does not really want to live with anybody. They're pretty happy. They're pretty happy in their own space, and it takes a lot to penetrate that shell and to share that shell with someone else. You know, it's interesting. I mean, they're completely rejuvenating, and they're very resourceful, and they're self-sustaining. And
yeah.
I mean, I would be like, where is everybody? Like, I could never do it as a Sag. I would have to have Skype 24/7, I guess, because I'd be like, let me pretend somebody's here.
There's also a timing to things too, because, you know, if I would think about trying, you know, that time 10 years earlier, or, you know, even a little bit now, it would be very different. I think I really, really needed that. You know, so I think there's a timing to things.
Well, it sounds like you really gave birth to a lot of art and a lot of creativity in that time.
Yeah.
So we should look at some more. Okay. Do you have any of the performance? Let's see, any of the stuff that shows that she was involved.
There was one, or let's see. That's another still. Let's see. I can't really see.
That is kind of that looks like some work that you did maybe as part of being a doula, because it looks like a child in a womb.
Yeah. This was actually before I knew I was going to be a doula. I thought I was going to be a death midwife.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I went to the other side because I'm already I have a lot of gravity that I feel like if I, it might be, what's the word? I just might do better on the other end. You know, having gravity in a birth setting is actually
Did you feel like it would take you too out? It would make you too out there. Maybe that if you were doing like a death. What did you call it?
A death midwife.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's like somebody working in hospice. Right?
Similar. Yeah. There's a lot of different ways, but I'm very comfortable with death. You know, I think it's an integral part of everything while we're alive, because there's death happening constantly, and that's, you know, while we're in an Earth Day subject, that is that's the element that is able to, there's, you know, why are we put in the ground, you know, why do we decompose and then we turn into something else, and then we're resources, you know, the earth is something that holds and holds and holds and then can transmute and then be useful again, you know. So that, you know, it's the death element. And I think
I love how she says that, and then she says it with a laugh. She's like, ha, ha, ha.
So yeah, that photo was from I used to spend time that way. Mm-hmm. I would just go out. We lived in a big wash, you know, there was just dirt, and for as far as your eye could see and beyond, there wasn't much. So I dug, what is that, 4-foot hole or something with lie in it, just like that. And then one day I was like, I'd like a picture of this one day. So I just had someone make a photo, but I didn't really intend for it to be for shows or anything, you know? But eventually,
the helicopter, the helicopter on its way to who knows. But do we have another one that we can show? Like maybe her. Yeah, there. That's a great performance art. I think that's a performance.
Not a performance. It's part of the series. The same. It's a film still, but this isn't film. This is digital. A different chapter than the last one though. But yeah, this is another ancestor character, and there. I try to keep it, the difference between black and white and color is the black and white is the past and the underworld, and the color is more of a liquid state. I wouldn't say it's the reality we live in, but it's a liquid state. So that's where this being is. Mm-hmm. And they're in a state of decomposition. Mm-hmm. So
how did you have these images? I guess we can take that out now. How did you have those images of ancestors kind of come to you? Was it like all at once? Was it like one after another? Was it
one after another? Mm-hmm. Yeah, one after another. You know, I feel like I don't know why. I don't know what it's about, and you know, the questions like that don't matter. But we have a lot of spiritism in our family.
Yeah.
You know, my grandparents and my mom, my aunts, everybody, as they say, the veils are thin. I mean, there was a lot of, beings would enter our houses, and sometimes not so much me, but it would happen with a lot of other family members where, possession, which has such bad connotations, but the energy fields and frequencies are really strong around us, and we tend to be really porous in our family.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's where a lot of these visions just came from. They're just really natural.
Mm-hmm. Were they ever scary for you?
When I was a kid, they were scary. Yeah, uh-huh. It took me a long time to understand that they're a part of everything, and that they actually teach me a lot. Mm-hmm. They have a lot to show and to give.
It reminds me of the movie Sixth Sense.
I never saw that.
Oh, you have to see it. So it's really scary for this little boy, because I mean, I'm not saying this is your experience, but he was really in between two worlds, and because he could actually see and dialogue with disembodied spirits, yeah. They all came to him, and in the end of the movie, this is a spoiler alert, but in the end of the movie, he was able to accept that was kind of a calling for him, and they did teach him, and he helped them.
Hollywood never does that.
There was this, well, that's why M. Night Shyamalan was put on the map as this fantastic director, because I believe that movie really had a message. Okay. And it was this wonderful symbiosis between this little boy and these spirits, and how he was able to balance his life and theirs.
Yeah.
That life wasn't stopping for them as well.
Yeah.
So it was fascinating. But you saw him go. You really saw him change because you saw him go through this intense transformation. Because in the beginning of the movie, he was petrified. I mean,
Yeah.
you see this little boy that has a flashlight under his blankets. He won't come out because there's people waiting
Yeah.
for him out there.
Yeah.
He can't go to the restroom. He can't do it. He's paralyzed with fear. And then he realizes that they're just like him. They just don't happen to have their bodies. So
I should watch this.
You should, yeah.
Because that's a really important point. I mean, we're so reliant on, this matter, tangible matter, visible world, but it's hard for us to accept the rest, and there's undoubtedly the rest.
So what happened? How did you handle that fear when you were little?
I had night terror every night. I had sleep paralysis every night.
What happened with the sleep paralysis?
I mean, classic. I was just couldn't move. Would wake up. Would try to scream. Couldn't scream. Time was forever. Ungraspable. Just space just moving, but that I was so still. Things like that. I would hear more than I would see presences, but did
they say anything in particular that you remember?
No, I don't remember anything they would say. It was more the feeling is more memorable than any of the presences, but and the only way that was ever explained to me was it's evil, it's malevolent, and so when
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either,
No,
but I had to come
I don't
to
think
that,
it is.
And the rest of, you're a kid, all you have around you is your family, for the most part, and all they're telling you is that it's evil because their experiences were, their presences were very dark and all these things, and they couldn't see any good from it, so that's how it was explained to me, but it's not like that now.
I wonder. Well, it sounds like they might believe it more, but it sounds like they have an element of sinisterism, being more sinister. In I asked you if it was more common there, more believable there, as opposed to here, where we tend to not really. I guess we tend to just we tend to brush off a lot of this stuff. We don't really talk. Our society doesn't talk about it. I mean, we're talking about right now really deep stuff. We're not just talking about tarot cards or astrology. I mean, this is like the deeper under, things that people probably aren't comfortable talking about.
Yeah.
But I think that obviously you're a conduit for this expression, and it's there's a place for it, and it balances things.
It does balance things. I appreciate that. It's a good perspective. It is that way. My dad was the only one that he taught me to lucid dream. He was the only one, and that is something I took with me my whole life, and I'll never ever forget that.
How did he teach you that?
It was just, he was the only one that would walk in that room, at night, and we would be sitting there in the dark, and he's like, this is what you have to do. You go, out goes the bad dreams, in goes the good dreams. And just do that over and over again when you're awake. And when you're asleep and in that state, concentrate as much as you can as getting off the ground. So I was flying all the time. I taught myself to fly.
Did he tell? So he really emphasized that you should spend as much time flying in your dream. Why do you think that was?
I mean, because most of what was happening and, all the night terror was on the ground, and everything was, and it wasn't so much like running from scary things. Sometimes it was just like, the sun is setting. Why is the sun setting? And I would go into and that would put me into a sleep paralysis. Like the sun would be setting in my dream, and it would be the most terrifying thing. I don't know why. Sometimes, it wasn't so situational or things like that, but I mean, that lesson was, I picked it up so quickly, and I was able to just
like you
transfer
got it when you were young, too. Like maybe that's why.
That is why. And later in my life, I was able to transfer that logic into this waking world in a lot of situations. You know, it's really...
It sounds very valuable.
Yeah, it was really valuable.
Wow.
So
I remember having dreams where I was flying. I've only had a few, but I had more as a kid. And then I had a few as an adult, but they were very few and far between. But what I remember about dreaming while I was flying was that I would live off of that feeling for a few days.
yeah,
It was such a special
it's
feeling.
very euphoric.
The same way that when you have a really good meal, it's like if you have a really good meal and you just keep thinking about it and thinking about it, or you saw a really good movie and just like it transforms the way you see your regular life.
Yeah,
So it definitely had that effect on me.
yeah,
And I think we probably remember what it's like not to be here. I think it puts us
Yeah.
in that state of being, and
yeah.
we kind of want to hold on to it, even though we're still here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us about when you were a doula.
I'm presently a doula.
Oh, well, not this minute. You're not a doula.
No. Yeah, I've been in practice for only a little over 2 years. That's it. But what do you want to talk about?
Well, there's a lot to talk
it?
about. Like, how many births have you assisted? Did
8.
you have 8 in 2 years? That's pretty good. Have they all been? I'm sure they've probably all been different, each one, right?
Yeah, they've all been different. Yeah, they've all been different. They've all been hospital births. I haven't done any home births. I would love to eventually. But yeah, it's something, like I said, I came to in kind of a polar opposite of what I thought, you know. Well, you know, also the logic was I was in the desert and I was just like, what? I need to go be around people again. It's time, you know. It's
Why not
time.
babies? Why not pregnant people?
No, but just more like what can I don't want to just go, you know, throw myself into a society structure completely flailing. Like, you know, what can I do? What's an intentional, you know, what's an intentional thing that I can do to help and also sustain myself. So that's what I chose. And also because I feel like on a personal level, it's a comfortable position for me, you know, to welcome souls, you know. So that's why I chose that. And it's wonderful on a lot of levels. Yeah, it's very practical, but it's also very spiritual. Very a lot of things. Yeah.
Is there something that really sticks out about to you, like an experience that you would share with us? One in particular, or anything that stuck out to you or made you feel like, wow, this is really something? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they're all beautiful, wonderful experiences.
They're not always, actually. I mean, I don't want to talk about anybody's experience specifically, but you know, hospitals I find to be such oppressive institutions. That's how I experience them, and whatever I can do to
they're very
somebody.
They're very sterile. They're kept very, very cold.
There's so many things.
There's not a lot of there's not a lot of spirituality in hospitals. There's a lot of technology in hospitals.
There's not even a lot of listening in hospitals.
There's not
really
a lot
basic things that when you're birthing a being onto the planet, as far as I'm concerned, that's an important point in time for everyone. Because when we are, you know, hit the ground, you know, or come into oxygen, however you want to think about it, when we're birthed, you want that to be a good time for you, you know. You and everyone in the room and everyone involved, because if it's traumatic, you're gonna take that with you your whole life, you know. And I'm speaking very matter-of-factly, and I know there's a lot of perspectives, but that's definitely for me how it's like I know that.
Well, it's definitely a non-intuitive environment.
Yeah, it's not. And you know, there have been a lot of situations where, you know, the mother is not listened to at all. She's been completely, there was one time where all the machines in the room were beeping at the same time. It was like a 35-hour labor. She was so incredible, and she was a baby. She was, a teenager, and she just had this capacity that was unbelievable. And we worked together so well. That moment where that was happening and all the machines, it was so busy. Not one nurse came in, nothing was happening. So we just started, we're like, and she was in what's called transition. So yeah, it's really difficult part of labor. She was in a lot of pain. So it was just all of it happening at once. And I could see her starting to panic. And I was just like, so we just started breathing. We were holding each other's hands and just locked. And we just started breathing in the rhythm of all the machines, because there was no other, there was nothing else to do about it. So it was just everything. It was incorporated into breathing.
You didn't fight the environment. You went with it, and you made it. You morphed, so that it would work.
Yeah,
and that's amazing. I'm getting chills actually. I think that's. But much of life.
A lot. That was
so much of life
time.
is like that.
It is.
I mean, that's a great
change
metaphor.
Everything around you.
Yeah, and a lot of I want to talk about that for a minute, because a lot of people think that we can change things around us, and I've seen a lot of people do spell work. I've seen a lot of people, force things, and I don't think it's so much about that. I think it's about paying attention to really being awake and having our eyes fully open and seeing what we have and how we can fit into it and not fight it, but work with it, work with the environment. And that's really what, when you think about earth energy or goddess energy or yin and yang, it's about, or even like Star Wars, like, working with the Force. I mean, Definitely. It really is so much about how can I be a cog in a machine? I learned that in improv, because everybody as an actor, everybody in improv is like, it's hard to hold yourself back, because you all want to take over and like make the skit yours. But it's really about being the minutia, the fine work of being the cog in the machine, and getting the piece that is going to make it all work together so it's in harmony.
Yeah.
So I'm sure however scary that was, I'm sure that baby felt that and was at peace also.
I hope so.
I think so.
We hope so.
Yeah.
That was the intention, I mean,
because if there's one thing that's really calming to a baby, it's the mother's heartbeat. And it's rhythms.
Yeah.
And if you were working in rhythms with the machinery and the breathing, then that all started to move.
Yes. Because nothing, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, things are not linear, and hospitals are nothing but grids and lines, and when you're, especially, when I don't have children, but when we're in a state of, when we're in labor, I mean, we're like so attuned, to, it's something that we get to do with female bodies, biological female bodies, where we have the gift of attunement. We have a sensitivity to things, and when we're in labor, it's like the hospital is the exact opposite of what our bodies want to be doing. We want to be in a place that is insulated, and to go into those places we need to go to. So anything I can do to help that be better, because people don't get birthing centers, people don't get home births. I work with a low income population, for the most part, so it's not like most people can't afford to have great birth experiences. So all we can do is kind of just get, to the source and to the elements of, okay, well, this is what birth is about. This is what it's doing. And like you said, just be harmonious with whatever's around as best as you can. Because, I mean, otherwise it's like you throw a room in panic. If you're trying to fight something like that, it's nobody, she's going to, have a really hard time, and that baby is going to have birth trauma and all this stuff. So.
I think that's beautiful, especially that you're working with people that might not be able to afford a doula, because that's really a luxury.
It is.
It's not something
and it shouldn't be.
Right.
It shouldn't be. I mean, birth support should be a given, and unfortunately, in this, LA, people are it's a very isolating place, and people don't have a lot of support, or advocates or anything, a lot of times. So, um, yeah, it's unfortunately a luxury, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful, meaningful work.
Yeah. I enjoy it.
And maybe you will do the other side. Maybe you will work in hospice, or you will work as a death midwife. I mean, my God, life is long, and maybe you'll transition, or you'll go back. I mean, at the end of the day, they're really the same thing.
They are. Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people
similar.
don't realize that, but if you hold the belief that death is not the end and birth isn't the beginning,
yeah,
then they're really part of the same tunnel.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think like that too. I love that you said that. It's hard for some people to see it that way, but it is that way. It just is.
I used to, when I was little, I was such a curious kid. I was like super curious, and I used to spend way too much time. Well, I can see now why, I turned into this, but I used to spend way too much time like asking these questions. I think I had an aunt that told me I asked too many questions, but one day I said to my mother, like, I think I asked her so many times, what happens like when we die, or if this is like what this all means. And I grew up in Philadelphia. There wasn't a lot of metaphysical, at least I didn't have access to it. And my mother said to me, well, do you remember what it was like before you were born? Do you remember what it was like? And I said, no. And she said, well, that's what it's like when you die. So I was like, oh, okay. But well, do you want to add anything else? Because I think we kind of touched on everything. I know you have a film. Do you want to talk about what's coming up with your film? I know you're in the process of that. Didn't you say?
There is one image. Could we just show one last image, because it's just exactly related to what we're talking about. Let me see. This one that's left, like second from the bottom.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. So this performance was called Yolk Drips from Kingdoms of Sleep. And that was a performance about the birth-death canal. So that was a projection from that. We had goats on our farm, so I saw goat births, and the veils of the placenta that would come out, and the veils of the sacs that the goats are born in, and the placenta and all those things. I filmed those, so this is a projection of one of those kind of, it's an embryonic sac that the babies come out in. And this was a movement, and it's also with the face casket for Oya. You can't really see it. It's a kind of weird still, but so yeah, that's about the birth-death canal kind of similarity.
That's cool.
Just wanted to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
I have to do a little spiel about Earth Day still, because I want to show everybody that that this is from the Sierra Club. And what I'm going to do for Earth Day is I'm going to rejoin the Sierra Club. This thing that they mailed me, it comes with I really have a horrible green thumb. This was all here before I got here, but this is beefeat flour mix. And look, if you guys join the Sierra Club today or now, you can pick one of these three things. You can get a backpack, you can get just like a gym bag, or you can get something for like a picnic bag. And it's so cheap. It's like $26 or something, or maybe it's not. I think it's $19 for the year. They have a promotion, and you can add a family member for another like $6 or for $26. So that's what I'm going to do. And there's another group that I ran into somebody today, and I promised him I would mention him on this podcast, the Natural Conservancy Project is planting 1 billion trees by 2025. So that's another environmental group that you guys can join. And I just urge everybody to honor the earth and remember the fluidity of yin and yang and positive and negative and how it all fits together, not to be fought against, but to flow and be in harmony with. I think we should leave with that.
Okay.
So thank you, Siriza.
You're welcome.
Now,
Thank you.
Now, wait a minute. What if somebody really wants to contact you? Like, what if they didn't think that they could afford a doula or something? Is there like a place where you can send? Where
I have an
you
email.
Do you want to tell them?
Yeah, it's Grita Lobos 79. GRITALOBOS 79 @gmail.com.
Okay, so if you guys know of anybody who's looking for a beautiful, wonderful, spiritual doula, who obviously really knows what she's doing, please contact her or send the information.
Or any art questions too, or any.
Yeah,
I can talk about anything. So.
Or you would exactly. And I didn't mean to just promote you as a doula,
Thank you.
We were just talking about that, and I had chills, and I really wanted to make sure people could contact you. So thank you for sharing the show with us.
Don't forget this.
Oh my God! Yes, that's right. We did start a little late, so okay. So thank you for reminding me. So I'm going to open up this is like a fortune cookie right now. I'm going to open up my little goddess statue. There's little papers inside, which I have not looked at in 15 years. And I'm going to see what I wrote myself way back in like 2001. Oh my God, there's so many. Let's see what I wrote. Oh, I wrote my best body ever. That's what I wrote, that I want to get in shape and have my best body ever. And it's so true because it's funny that I am really trying to focus on that. I got off Zoloft. I was on Zoloft for like over a decade, a very small dose. Yeah. So I don't take that anymore. And I'm trying to eat cleaner. I recently I haven't cut out coffee, but I have cut out my morning muffin at Starbucks. So it's very apropos, and I'm moving towards it, even though I haven't looked at it in 15 years. It still got manifested. Thank you for coming. Please join me next week, Saturday at 3. I have Solaris coming. No, that's 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now, I have Solaris. She's a fairy astrologer. Next week is still a little bit up in the air, but I'll keep you guys posted. Thank you for being loyal fans of the show, Metaphysically Speaking with Mystic Madison. Happy Earth Day. Bye.